Hello and welcome to the session on why build the Cloud Center of Excellence at PulumiUP 2024. I'm Alex Radu and I will be your speaker for today. All views expressed in this presentation are my own and do not represent the views of my employer. So without further ado, let's get started. Today we're going to cover the what, how, and why of building a Cloud Center of Excellence. And this is to accelerate your enablement and adoption of cloud. And we're going to wrap up with some examples of how it can help in real life. So cloud technology now underpins a lot of our business operations, and there are challenges associated with becoming a cloud-first organization that many businesses are facing. So there's not been a better time to think about establishing a Cloud Center of Excellence, or CCOE. So for those of you who might be new to the term, this is a centralized team of cloud experts that is overseeing the governance of your organization's cloud stack, and as well the enablement of cloud within your organization. So for cloud adoption laggard, the consequences could be very real, and they can be left behind in a tech industry that evolves at a very fast pace. To get value from cloud, you need to not only modernize technologies, but also humans and your culture, and help them upskill and adjust your processes as an organization. So what is a CCOE? There are a lot of misconceptions about this, and I found a great analogy to try to explain it. So we're going to do a bit of myth busting and what people think a CCOE should be, or they think that it might be. So they think that it's a little bit like the Jedi Council, or Yoda, the most wise of Jedis. And in CCOE terms, that means that they are expected to be the be-all, know-all, do-all of cloud. They seem to be regarded as the central ownership function for everything cloud in an organization, a central enabler of all and any cloud adoption for business teams, and they're disconnected from technologist experiences. Then they only support one level of expertise, and that is experts. So that couldn't be more far from the truth. The reality is that the CCOE is more like the alliance, building a coalition, providing support and evidence, being committed, getting buy-in from senior stakeholders in leadership, doing the heavy lifting and implementing the company cloud strategy, and furthering the passion and knowledge of adopting a new technology or stack. So they own and execute maybe on your cloud strategy, driving collaboration and best practice. They accelerate your adoption by and also minimizing costs and risks. They build community and support advocates for your initiatives, and they also evaluate the scale of the technology that they need to support the business. So people might have a lot of different names for them, like cloud champions, cloud strategy and enablement teams, cloud knowledge center, capability center, competence center. So there's a lot of different ways that people call them. However, the earliest mention of a CCOE that I could find was in 2016, and it was on one of the AWS blogs from Stephen Orban. And it's one of the first ones that I could actually track down. Fast forward about 8 years from the blog, and the CCOE has now an even more broad definition. Also, Gartner expects that by 2027, enterprises will use industry cloud providers to accelerate more than 50% of their critical business initiatives, where in 2021, like 3 years ago, this was less than 10%. So that's a very, very big jump. Some organizations might only require a cloud management office or a virtual team to deploy cloud, especially if you're a smaller scale organization. But after more than a decade of discussions, like from Gartner with its clients, it's come out that the CCOE has emerged as the best practice for facilitating successful cloud adoption in mid-sized and large enterprise organizations, regardless of their strategy or structure. So they're an enabler. So how do they enable? Well, before we get started, I do want to mention that there is another myth that I want to bust, and there is no one size fits all when it comes to a CCOE, like most things in tech. So if yours is like most businesses, you've probably adopted cloud in some shape or form. So this answer will depend on like what should my CCOE look like, on how successful you've been to date and your level of organizational maturity. So a low level organizational maturity might mean that building out a CCOE will be harder. And figuring out how to develop like a structured, repeatable cloud migration roadmap that would make your life easier is part of that remit from the CCOE. But you first need to find out who are the people that are in that kind of spaces working on that to be able to bring them all together. So we're going to look at a few models that are going to describe what the CCOE can look like in different size and scale of enterprises, depending on the infrastructure that you also have, and hopefully you'll start discovering what will work for you. So when thinking about what CCOE to build, you have a couple of different options in the way that they're organized. And the three ways that we're going to look at are centralized, decentralized, and semi-centralized. So this is at an organizational level. OU stands for organizational unit. So you might think about this as your department, or if you're a startup, maybe your teams. And again, it depends on the size of the company of what model you might want to consider. So the centralized one, basically you have a single central team that is your CCOE that spans your organization. And it works better for smaller teams, so maybe like startups, scale-ups, and companies where scale isn't an issue. The pros are that it has a clear vision, you have clear roles, accountability is central, and the cons are that you have the engagement and the real world grounding in business that isn't really there because they're spanning a lot of your organization, so they don't have time to get really deep with the specific requirements of each of your maybe teams or businesses. And again, it won't scale very well because you can't, infinitely grow that team to support the organization if the organization gets to maybe like 20,000 people. Decentralized is a V model, so basically you kind of have like your own CCOE and within your organizational units or departments or teams, depending on how you're structured. The engagement and real world insight are really important because they're embedded into your organizational unit, so they understand the needs and the requirements and like what that specific unit requires from your cloud strategy. But the cons are that you might have competing work, or you might have competing priorities, you might have duplicative work happening in all of those different kind of like pillars because they're not really aligned and talking to each other. You might have some missing leadership or governance at a firm-wide level because you don't have that kind of like high-level central function that discusses with your leadership and with your stakeholders to kind of like steer the vision and the strategy forward. And then we come to the semi-centralized model, which means that you have kind of like a hybrid of the first two. So you have like a central CCOE team at the firm-wide level, but then you have what we call cloud cells in within each of the organizational units. However, they're all interconnected. So they're not working in isolation, they're working in partnership, kind of like the alliance analogy previously. So they understand very well what your businesses and organizational units require, but there's also a central team that works with them to make sure that they're prioritized across the firm, also that we're enabling the right things and we're building the right things for all of the different organizational units. Again, pros and cons are a mix of the previous two, but it does work better for well-established big companies that might have challenges with like alignment, cost optimization, solution design, pattern building, that kind of thing at a firm-wide level. So in terms of what the workings are, basically you have that organizational unit in one cloud cell team. And we're going to talk a little bit about the cloud cell in the next part, what types of roles you might have in your cloud cell team as opposed to your central CCOE team. And basically the central CCOE team will guide the formation of the cloud cells and then work in partnership, but they also have the kind of like strategic governance role that they need to take care of. Using a semi-centralized model obviously helps you have some accountability to the cloud cell as well as a central unit. and provides, like a framework to support them through like knowledge exchanges, communities of practice, standards, engineering, reusing of solutions, training and coaching services, and additionally, like the application in the organizational unit, the cloud cell will know intimately, and they will know what they need and how to prioritize kind of like those needs alongside the rest of the teams. So how does a team look like? Well, it could look like this. So you have the central CCOE team that works a lot on the strategy, steering, and governance, so like firm-wide level. And then you have your cloud cells that might have different capabilities and skill sets. So you might have controls, compliance, and security as like one of your departments in a cloud cell, or a couple of people that are aligned specifically to that. You have administration and operations. You have cloud platform engineering, you have cloud adoption and engagement. So these might be like, like architects, middleware, platform engineers. You might have capacity planners, incident managers, SRE teams. And again, like they're a different makeup from the central team. The central team still needs to have some of that skill set in their central team to be able to pull everyone else together. So in terms of what do the people and the actual skills and mindsets of the people working in these organizations looks like, well, creating a future-proof pipeline of cloud talent is vital to have ongoing cloud success. So people might leave, people might retrain, people might get promoted, people might change line of work, etc. Things can happen. So you want to make sure that, you're capitalizing on the fact that excellence comes in many forms. Not everyone in your CCOE needs to be a cloud veteran. You want to build a CCOE that grows and evolves with your organization and also with the people in the organization. So your CCOEs should have diverse, deep ideas and knowledge, deep understanding of like your business needs, but also agility and enthusiasm to tackle new challenges when they arise. And by looking at this kind of like traits, so, being innovative, being empathetic, having a growth mindset, being resilient, being customer-centric, being focused on relationships, being focused on being, like an influencer and make sure that we're going in the right place, even though it's going to be hard to get there. Making sure they have some awareness of like change enablement. That would be like, really important. And in the terms of the roles that these people would be in, you might have cloud architects, you might have CCOE leaders, you might have cloud analysts, cloud engineers, cloud operations that work kind of like in a DevOps environment. You might have security managers. You might have consultants, engagement managers, cloud training, cloud learning. So there's a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different knowledge that you need to have as part of your CCOE to be able to help the rest of the organization come together on this journey. And you need to make sure that they have the right mindset, but also the right mix of skills. So in terms of how you use those skills and these people to kind of like build up and launch and maintain your CCOE, again, it might change over time, so it's not always going to be the same, but you can start by evaluating and setting your goals. Where are you at? What do you want to achieve? How are you going to get support? Start forming your team. Find the people in your organization already doing this. Define your charter and governance. Identify what you can tackle first in terms of workloads and resources. And then look at, like research and reuse things, engage and advocate, scale and reorganize to get to that endpoint where you're achieving your goals. In terms of why, well, we're going to give you a couple of different reasons with concrete examples. So whether you use cloud today and want to expand its footprint, make the most of it, you're at the beginning of your cloud journey, you want to like adopt it in the near future, having a CCOE is a great way to set yourself up for success. So how can it help? You can actually help your teams enable new products or services faster, build features faster, migrate applications faster by having kind of like dedicated support, cross-product solutions requests, and testing and adoption ahead of making that generally available. You might want to increase your cloud fluency in your organization, and they can help with like, demand collection, management, delivery of training, getting discounts, starting events, creating hackathons, like centrally for people to leverage and upskill. You might want to do cloud app development, and you're developing from scratch every single time because every team wants to do their own thing. But actually, through a CTO, you can accelerate this deployment and secure the deployments to cloud. using the Cloud Cell to kind of govern the onboarding of applications, building reusable patterns, with the goal of having like minimal bespoke implementations, but also supporting them, to increase the speed to market. You might also want to consider it from the FinOps tooling part. So, enabling tools, best practice for optimization for your applications, getting organizational discounts, review costs holistically, identify saving opportunities at like a firm-wide level. And also, in terms of compliance and security, having the same rules for everyone, having compliance and code guardrails that you implement, and so on and so forth. So a lot of different ways that this can be really, really helpful to your organization. So again, governance, brokerage, education, community, reuse, and policy. Those are like a few of the reasons why you want to build the Cloud Center of Excellence. And I'm so excited that I've been here and able to share this with you, and hope you've enjoyed it too and learned something new. Thank you.